The wind has no mercy this morning. It snakes through the thatched rooftops and around the stone bell tower, whispering old judgments into the frost. It carries with it the damp breath of the river and the smoke from hearths already lit, not for warmth, but for the watching. The candle flickers not from a breeze, but from the trembling of her hands. She kneels in silence, her bare feet pressing into the freezing stones. The hem of her linen shift clings to her skin, wet not only with dew, but with the cold sweat of dread. She does not speak. There is no one here who would listen. His robes are heavy with the scent of frankincense, dragging across the floor like old regret. He does not acknowledge her presence. His eyes stay on the missal. His voice is steady, rhythmic, empty of feeling. Latin words falling like cold rain. Her name is uttered once. Not in prayer, not in concern, but as formality, obligation. A mark scratched onto the surface of sanctity. Beneath the cold sky, the village exhales together, expectant, tense, as if the earth itself holds its breath. A blackbird bursts from the chapel eave behind her. A flash of wings, frantic and silent, as if it too wishes to escape the judgment. Inside the chapel, the air is thick with the mingled scents of wax and old prayers. Her wrists are bound with leather thongs, but she does not resist. The walk is short, but every step presses against the weight of 100 eyes. She sees no mercy among them, only distance. Fear wears many masks. She is 17. Her breath comes in quick clouds. Her eyes lock not on the water, but on the chapel's weathered cross. Somewhere behind her, a child begins to sob. A mother hushes it quickly. Her body arches, but she does not pull away. Her fingers fumble in the water, flesh peeling, skin blistering, until they close around the smooth weight of the stone. Her bandages will be checked each morning. They will peel them back like bark from a tree, looking for rot, looking for truth. Slowly, quietly, no one meets each other's eyes. The blacksmith spits into the mud. The baker's wife tugs her cloak tighter. She lifts it, drops it onto the wooden table beside the cauldron. He recites the ritual, the words of the ordeal, their holiness now dulled by repetition. She is not expected to speak. She is expected to submit. She sees her mother's hands once, threading wool. She sees the chapel, warm and empty. She sees the blackbird, wings sharp against the sky. The hand must remain submerged for the time it takes to recite one Lord's Prayer. They unwrap the linen slowly. The wound is raw. The skin is broken and slick. The scent is not clean. Then the wound will be wrapped and watched. If it festers, she is guilty. If it heals clean, the Lord has declared her innocent. Her sentence is exile, to leave the village by sundown, to never return under pain of death. They do not escort her. They do not offer food. She walks away with her left arm wrapped and useless, her right holding only the hem of her cloak against the wind. Her feet bleed on the frost-bitten path. No one follows Dot at the edge of the woods. She turns once. The village is small. The chapel's steeple pierces the mist. The blackbird sits on its cross, silent, watching, and then she disappears between the trees. The snow begins to fall in the village. The bells are silent now. But somewhere further down this path, in another valley, another town, another. Accusation will rise. Another trial, another cauldron. And somewhere, a girl will kneel again in a chapel, tracing the shape of a cross, asking not for justice, but simply to be believed. Rain. It does not fall. It weeps. Soft at first, a whisper against the slate rooftops, but growing heavier with each passing hour, until the manor walls seem to shudder beneath its weight. It creeps down the edges of banners once bright with heraldic color, now faded, bleeding, into the stone like forgotten oaths. Inside, the great hall is a hush of firelight and thunder. A nobleman paces slowly, his fur-lined mantle trailing along the damp flagstones like the cloak of a king at war with his conscience. Each step echoes. The chamber smells of damp wool, melting tallow, and the faint bitterness of rusted mail. A servant waits nearby, stiff with unease, holding a scroll sealed hastily, the ink still wet where a trembling hand accused one knight of betrayal and treason. No one speaks it aloud, but the name etched there has weight. It is not just a name, but a bond, a fellow knight, a brother once, forged not by blood, but by siege walls and shared scars. They rode beneath the same banner, laughed over the same hearth, wept for the same fallen men. And now, one has branded the other a traitor. But this is no court of reason. No parchment will sway fate here. No witness can rescue what pride has already condemned. The Lord, solemn beneath his rings in silence, nods once. And with that, justice is summoned not from the divine, but from the blade. Trial by combat. Let steel decide. Let wounds speak where voices cannot dot in the courtyard. The world holds its breath. The squires move in quiet ritual. Leather buckles. Chainmail groans. Helmets are fastened not with haste, but with reverence, as if preparing men not for battle, but for burial. Rain pools in the mud beneath their boots, thick and black, like the memory of blood long spilled. Accused is led forward. He is older than they remember, gray at the temples, shoulders stooped, not with fear, but exhaustion. His mail shirt clings to his body, sodden and heavy. Bruises bloom at his collarbone. His knees sink into the muck as he kneels, fingers tracing a hasty cross upon his chest. He mutters a prayer, the Latin fractured and fading on his tongue, like a language he once knew, but now only hopes will be heard. Across the circle, his opponent stands waiting, younger, still proud, still burning with the weight of betrayal, or the illusion of it. Sword in hand, gauntlets clenched, jaw set. He does not speak. He cannot, because what words remain between brothers, torn apart by fear? The crowd gathers at the edges, peasants in hoods, soldiers with rain-slicked armor, children clinging to their mothers' skirts. They watch not as spectators, but as witnesses to something sacred and cruel. This is not sport. It is sacrifice. Trumpets cry out, sharp, cutting the fog. A raven screams from the roof of the chapel, then takes flight. The two men step forward. Mud squelches beneath their boots. The sky darkens as if it too is unsure who to side with. Their swords rise. Rain drips from the blades like sweat from an anxious brow. But in that pause, just before the clash, time stops. The accused looks at the man before him, his brother, his accuser. And what he sees there is not hatred. It is grief, the kind of grief too deep for words, the kind that has no beginning, only a wait, a knowing that whatever comes next, no truth will be clean. No verdict will restore what was lost. Then, the first strike, steel on steel. A sound like a church bell cracking. The crowd flinches. The nobleman watches from the window above, his fingers tight around the sill. His face, carved in stone, betrays nothing. But he sees it, the pain behind the parry, the hesitation behind, the riposte. They are not warriors here. They are memories forced into flesh, tearing themselves apart to satisfy an invisible god. The rain thickens. Blades slip. A shield cracks. The older knight stumbles, falls to one knee. A gasp ripples through the crowd. But he rises again, blood running down his cheek, lips moving in a prayer not for himself, but for the man he must kill. Blow after blow, the dance continues, until one misstep, one breath too shallow, the sword finds its mark. A cry, not of victory, but of despair. The younger man steps back, blade trembling. The older knight collapses into the mud, chest heaving, breath shallow. He does not scream. He looks upward into the falling rain and closes his eyes. The priest steps forward. The crowd parts. There is no cheer, no applause, only silence. The judgment is declared. Guilt proven. By blood, by pain, by spectacle dot, but in the manor window, the Lord still does not move. His eyes linger not on the victor, but on the fallen. A man he called friend, a knight who once bled for his banners, now condemned by ritual and law. The body is carried away, wrapped in a sodden cloak, face covered. The younger knight does not look back. He does not speak again that day. Some say he left the castle before sunset, never to return. Others say he remained a ghost in armor, serving silently until death. And still the rain falls not to cleanse, but to remember that in the medieval world, justice was never about truth. It was about who could stand, who could swing, who could be believed. The mud will dry, the blood will fade, but the wound, the real wound, remains in the heart of the hall, in the silence after steel, in the echo of footsteps that will never return. And somewhere, far from the manor, another man waits, a monk in shadow, accused not by sword, but by silence. The relics are missing, the sacred vessels gone, and the only thing colder than the iron door closing behind him is the stone crypt where he must prove his soul. The wind moves like an old breath through the scorched clearing, stirring the edges of charred timber and burnt thatch. It carries ash with it, soft as snow, landing on the linen-wrapped hands of the woman who kneels alone in the wreckage. Her home, once crooked and moss-roofed, hidden behind the birch trees like a secret, has been turned to smoke and ruin. The soil still holds heat. The air is thick with the smell of old fire, resin, and something darker. Grief, maybe. Or judgment. Her veil is soaked with smoke and sweat. Beneath it, her face is marked not by tears, but by stillness. She says nothing. Her silence is a cloak thicker than wool. No one saw her scream when they came. No one saw her beg. Perhaps she didn't. Perhaps she only watched as the villagers circled with pitchforks and pine torches, voices quaking more with fear than fury. A healer, they once called her, a wise woman, until the harvest failed, until a child died, until the goat bled from the mouth. Now she is a witch. Dawn breaks not with birdsong, but with hooves. The sheriff's retinue emerges from the morning mist, iron badges clinking, horses steaming with breath. The lead rider swings down and gestures to the cart, his eyes never meeting hers. He doesn't have to speak. She rises without sound, stepping over broken beams and the half-burned remains of her stool. Her skirts are singed, her feet bare. When she climbs into the cart, the wood creaks like an old prayer. The journey to the village is long, cruel in its slowness. Each mile is marked by stairs. Children peek from behind walls, their fingers curled around the edges of shutters. Women clutch crucifixes. Men spit into the road. No one speaks to her. Her presence is a stain on the world they know. But her fingers twitch still, brushing the edge of her skirt. An old motion, almost forgotten. That's where she once kept the dried rowan, the foxglove, the crushed yarrow. When they arrive, the square is already full. Townsfolk ring the wooden platform, their eyes wide with the hunger of spectacle. The brazier is lit. A long iron rod rests within, glowing red as a setting sun. The trial has no lawyer, no plea, just heat. She is led forward. Her steps fall on damp straw. Her breath is steady, her hands still wrapped in old linen. The judge reads the words as if carved into stone. Trial by ordeal. She will walk 9 paces holding the iron. If her hands heal clean in 3 days, she is innocent. If they fester, she burns for her sins, No one speaks of how the wounds were made before she was accused. No one asks about the night she pulled a child from fever or the mother she saved with bitter herbs. Those stories are dead now, buried beneath the ashes of her roof. The bell tolls. She lifts the iron. It hisses against the morning air. Smoke curls around her wrists. Her skin blackens. The square holds its breath. Somewhere, a dog barks, sharp and confused. A child begins to cry. She walks. 1 step. 2. The pain is beyond pain. Now it is a place of silence, a realm of stars. She does not scream. She does not falter. Only her eyes flicker, not to the crowd, not to the iron, but to the chapel crossed behind the judge. Her gaze locks there, unmoving. Perhaps she prays. Perhaps she curses Dot at the 9th step. She releases the rod. It falls into the straw with a hiss. The priest rushes forward, robes fluttering like doves in panic. He takes her hands with a tenderness that is not his own. He does not meet her eyes. He wraps the wounds in white linen, binding them not in mercy, but in waiting. The crowd disperses slowly, as if reluctant to leave the shadow of judgment. Some murmur, some cross themselves. Others whisper of devils and charms and unnatural silences. She is led away again, not to a cell, not yet, but to the chapel's back, hall where a nun waits with bread and water, and a silence almost as deep as her own. She sits on the stone bench and stares at her bandaged hands. They throb with a holy heat. 3 days. That is the test. But the wound is not just in the skin. It is in the memory of flames, in the eyes of neighbors turned strangers, in the names she will never again be called. Mother, sister, healer. Night falls. The embers at her home have long since cooled, but the trial burns on, inside her, through her, around her. And somewhere in the dark, the herbs she once gathered rot in silence. Their power forgotten Dot, she closes her eyes. The next chapter will begin not with a verdict, but with a scar. The cold came first, not as a gust or chill, but as a presence. It crept beneath the monk's torn robe like a whispered curse. Around him, the alleyways of the coastal town shrank inward with the falling dusk, stone walls rising like the ribs of some great beast intent on swallowing him whole. The sea, though distant, made itself known in every breath of air salt laced, sharp and metallic, like blood washed in water. Gulls circled above with hollow cries, their wings carving the dying light into ribbons. The monk's feet, bare and raw, left pale smudges of blood upon the uneven stones. Shackles bit at his wrists. His breath rose in thin clouds. He said nothing. Those who watched from behind shuttered windows saw a boy, but those who led him silent monks with eyes like locked doors knew. Something else was unraveling. The abbey gate opened without ceremony. The abbot stood at its threshold, a shadow wrapped in wool and relics. His voice was barely more than a murmur, but it held centuries. No words of judgment, no parchment sealed with wax. Only the sentence, the ancient ordeal. No fire, no food. 3 nights in the crypt beneath the abbey, sealed alone with the saints and their silent remains Dot as the iron door groaned and sealed him inside. The silence became total. No rustle of robes, no whisper of prayer. Only the breathing stones and the faint drip of water from a cracked ceiling high above. The crypt smelled of damp linen and old incense, like forgotten sacraments. Moss blanketed the walls in slow green. Tides. Candles flickered from niches, their flames trembling before bones arranged in patterns like sacred riddle skulls, stacked like silent judges. Ribs splayed like the wings of broken angels. He sat among them, cross-legged, watching shadows move with breathless rhythm. He thought of bread coarse, warm, split by hand. He thought of light slanting through stained glass, dappling the floor of the chapel in colors like forgiveness. But there, beneath stone and silence, time thickened. Hours passed not in numbers, but in the ache of knees and the hunger gnawing at the gut like doubt. Outside, the world moved differently. The townsfolk lit candles in trembling hands. Some prayed. Others gossiped. A few feared the ordeal more than the theft itself. They remembered stories of souls who left the crypt untouched by flame, but never returned whole. The abbot kept vigil in the chapel, whispering to icons that gave no answer. Behind monastery doors, monks debated in hushed tones, casting glances toward the sealed stair. And still, inside the crypt, the boy endured. Or something did dot by the third day. The chill no longer stung inhabited him. His skin had paled. His lips cracked, but it was not hunger that broke him. It was what stirred beyond the light. A breath where there should be none. A sigh behind his ear. Shadows that rearranged themselves when his eyes closed. In that place of bones and relics, time ceased to be a road and became a circle, spinning in silence. He saw a chalice, not the stolen one, but another, older, offered by unseen hands. He did not reach for it. When the iron door opened with a shriek that split the stillness, the boy blinked into torchlight. His face had changed, not aged, but hollowed, like something essential had been bled away. His temples bore streaks of white. His hands shook, not from starvation, but from knowing. From memory, the abbot stepped forward, his expression unreadable. He searched the monk's eyes for answers, for signs of guilt or grace. He found neither. The monk did not kneel. He did not speak. He only looked past the abbot, toward the chapel spire, as if the stars were calling him elsewhere, but no confession ever came. No defense, no accusation. Days later, a woodcutter stumbled upon the missing chalice, buried in the roots of an ash tree near the river bend. Another monk confessed quietly, with tears and trembling. He was pardoned. The young monk was never asked, but he was changed. He returned to the abbey as a ghost among the living. He took no vows again, no meal with brothers. He tended the fire in the chapel, always watching the flame, always cold, even in the height of summer when sweat ran down others' brows. When he passed through cloisters, monks made way with lowered eyes. And at night, the crypt whispered Dot, sometimes they saw him there, kneeling by the bones with hands outstretched, as if warming them by the coals of some sacred fire, only he could. See, no one dared speak to him. No one asked what he saw. But when storms rolled in and the sea raged, some claimed to hear him singing not words, but tones rising and falling like the chant of a forgotten rite. The ordeal was over. But it never left him. And somewhere beneath the abbey, the saints watched still, waiting. The story does not end here. It passes like a candle to the next hand, to another silence, to another fire yet to burn. The rope burns faintly against his skin. Frayed hemp, rough with river rot, clings like a second set of veins wrapped round his wrists. The damp air curls along his neck, as if it too is watching, waiting. Beneath his bare feet, the wood of the platform creaks, swollen from the morning's rain, a groan in its grain, like an old man sighing before confession. The village green, usually alive with gossip and livestock and the scattered laughter of idle boys, has been hollowed out. Even the crows seem to perch in silence. He is only 13, though time has already carved its lessons into the slope of his shoulders and the tightness in his jaw. The tithe barn's doors had been ajar at dusk, the sacks too closely guarded, the hunger too loud in his belly. A handful of oats vanished, and the steward, pale and sharp as winter's blade, seized the moment. Power, after all, is a thing fed by fear, and fear blossoms best in public soil. Behind the crowd his mother stands. Her lips do not move, but her hands clench the bone rosary so tightly the beads might snap. She wears no cloak, only a thin wool dress, torn at the hem, soaked from her kneeling in the church long before dawn. She has buried 2 sons already, both claimed by last spring's fever. This boy, her last, now waits at the edge of water. The Dunking chair is wheeled forward, a crude contraption of timber and iron, oiled not for mercy, but to keep it from splintering under the weight of judgment. The carpenter leans in, tightening the leather straps that bind the chair's arms. He does not speak. His mouth is set in the kind of silence men wear when their work offends their spirit, but not enough to stop their hands. The steward steps forward. His voice is thin and high and carries too far. Let the river judge, he declares. No trial, no plea, just the river, a god older than parchment, colder than justice. The boy's breath is shallow. He does not cry, not here, not now. His shift clings to him, torn at the collar. His hair, hastily shorn, exposes the fragile nape of his neck. As the carpenter lifts him into the chair, the boy turns his head slightly, just enough to see. The water. The river is wide and dark and unmoving. He flinches as the straps close over his arms and legs. The iron feels colder than he expected. His toes twitch. The crowd shifts. Some murmur. One girl hides behind her father's tunic. Elder women pull shawls tighter around their shoulders. One begins a quiet chant, Latin worn to breath. Libera. Domini, de morte eterna. A nod. The rope tightens. The chair begins to descend. A single splash, soft, almost reverent. Water closes over his face like a shroud. For a heartbeat. Nothing stirs. Then his legs begin to kick, not in panic, but in the instinctive dance of survival. He thrashes. The chains rattle. A gasp escapes the lips of someone in the crowd. The river takes him. Seconds pass. Then more. Then too many. A bird cries overhead, a long distant sound that seems to stretch the moment into something unbearable. The silence presses down on the villagers, like a storm cloud about to break. Then, a groan of rope. The chair jerks upward. The boy emerges in pieces. First hair, then forehead, then his mouth, wide and gasping for air. He coughs, eyes wild, chest heaving. Water pours from his nose. Sputtering, shivering, alive, but the steward, unmoved, raises a hand. He floats, he says. He is guilty. The hammer falls quietly, not on wood, but on the back of a boy's spirit. He is cut loose, falls to his knees in the grass. The earth is wet. He does not rise. His sentence is pronounced without pause. A season of labor, no wages, no bread beyond what sustains. His name will not be cleared. He will be watched. The villagers begin to drift away, like smoke after a pyre. Some speak of the weather, others of debts and thatchwork. Only one old man lingers, a beggar with milky eyes, who mutters, "What did the water truly say?" No one answers. That night, the boy does not go home. He slips away from the steward's ledger, from the priest's quiet glance, from his mother's open door. He walks barefoot on the riverbank. The mud squelches between his toes. Fireflies blink low among the reeds. The river, now stilled, reflects the moon like a blade of polished bone. He kneels. In his palm, a stone, smooth, flat, cold. He throws it once. It skips, then sinks. Ripples spread outward, soft circles vanishing into the dark. He watches until they're gone. He is no longer sure what guilt means, or innocence. The ordeal has not cleansed him. It has marked him. People will not see a boy next week. They will see the chair, the rope, the sentence. He has become the echo of that moment. Behind him, the wind carries laughter from the tavern. Life continues. He picks up another stone, not to throw, just to hold. Somewhere across the fields, the steward dines on salted venison. Somewhere else, the church bell waits to toll another morning. But here, only the river speaks, and its words are silence. The boy lies back in the grass, his shirt still damp, his limbs heavy. The moonlight pools in his eyes. He thinks of the oats. He thinks of hunger, of the cold wood against his spine, of his mother's rosary, of the steward's eyes, of the moment under water, where everything had been weightless dot, and for the first time he wonders if the river was ever meant to judge, or if men simply needed something ancient to blame. Tomorrow he will wake before dawn to carry stones for a wall that will never be his. But tonight the world is quiet, and in the quiet he begins very slowly to forget how to trust. The ripple of a frog disturbs the water dot far beyond the trees. A wolf cries, and somewhere ahead, in a darker chapter still unwritten, a chain is forged in silence, meant for a neck too proud to bow dot in the far north, where the cold seems to rise not from the ground, but from the bones of the earth itself. A fire crackles faintly in the stone hearth of a forgotten hall. The embers cast dull gold onto worn tapestries, their colors long surrendered to ash and silence. The wind presses against the shutters like a ghost seeking entry, and within this hushed chamber, grief moves with quiet precision. She kneels on the flagstones, where melted snow has soaked the hem of her gown into sodden lace. Her hair, usually coiled and pinned beneath her veil, now spills in tangled rivulets down her back, a crown of mourning unfastened. The noblewoman does not speak. Her lips are chapped, her hands stained with the faintest trace of soil, as though she has clawed at something buried or held something that no longer breathes. Her husband lies stiff and pale beneath the chapels. Cold vaults, the high-born lord of this keep, struck not by sword nor plague, but by a poison without scent. It did not shout its arrival, nor leave behind the red ruin of violence. It was a thief in the wine, a silence in the blood. He died with no outcry, only a slackening of the jaw at supper, only a stillness that crept in, slow and final. No one saw her pour it. No one claims to have heard the quarrel. But scandal does not require witnesses, only a void to fill. And so the whispers begin, like frost patterns on glass, beautiful, damning, impossible to erase. The steward is quick to act, for to leave suspicion unanswered is to invite ruin. The court must see order, must see justice. He invokes a right, so old that even the monks fumble the words. The ordeal of bread and water. It is a trial not of evidence, but of breath and divine decision. She will be given the blessed loaf, dry and holy. If she can swallow it without distress, then God himself has spoken. If she chokes, even for a moment, she is guilty in the eyes of heaven and man alike. At dawn, the chapel doors groan open on rusted hinges. Candles gutter in the wind that sweeps across the stone floor. Monks line the nave in cowled silence, their chants low and unbroken, a dirge in Latin. She is brought forward, not dragged, not forced. Her steps are deliberate, her head high, though her skin bears the waxy pallor of sleepless nights and prayers unanswered. The altar is stark. A chalice of spring water glints in the dim light. The bread, shaped not as nourishment, but as judgment, lies beside it, dry as bone. An iron crucifix presides over the scene, its weight leaning toward the stone, as though the metal, too, mourns what is about to unfold. The priest intones the rite. She listens, she breathes, then she reaches for the bread. It cracks softly between her fingers. She brings it to her lips. The taste is dust. Her throat, raw from weeping and winter's air, closes in protest. She tries to will it down, but her body, so long in mourning, so hollowed by dread, forgets how to obey. The cough is soft, a breath catching, barely more than a flinch of the throat. But it is enough that another cough follows, and the priest's hands tighten on the chalice. The steward does not speak, but the verdict is written in his stare. The monks fall silent. The keep itself seems to pause. She is guilty. The rites end quickly. She is taken not to the cells below the hall, but to the tower, a place of waiting and forgetting. A veil is drawn over her face, not for modesty, but to mark her shame. Her footsteps no longer echo. She is not seen again. The chapel is cleansed. The bread is burned with incense. The altar cloth replaced. Her name is stricken from court records, her seal broken, her marriage treated as a mistake in the margin of the family line. But truth does not always die so easily. Years later, a servant, old, half-mad, his hands shaking from age, uncovers a letter behind a loose stone in the Lord's study. It is written in a familiar hand. The late husband's. His final words confess fear, not of his wife, but of a cousin with claim to the land, of retainers whose loyalty had withered in the famine, of poison whispered in the feasting hall. There is no accusation, only apology, only regret, only a wish that she be spared what he feared was coming. But by then, no one remains who will listen. She is buried beyond the walls, near the edge of the woods, no stone to mark her, no name to offer. Only a shallow grave, dug in haste, and the memory of her hands wrapped in linen. And yet, something soft resists the forgetting. Every spring, wildflowers bloom where the tower once stood. Bright, defiant things. Bluebells, foxglove, a single white rose. No one plants them. No one tends them. But they come year after year, as though the earth remembers what the keep tried to silence. And in their petals, some say, is the taste of bread, dry, bitter, and brave. The next chapter begins not in a chapel, nor a tower, but deep within the belly of a stone keep, where men await the judgment of steel, where the next ordeal is not of breath, but of blood, where innocence must be proved beneath a sky filled with ashen armor. Snow falls in slow spirals, drifting like ash over the white-blanketed field. All is silence, save for the slow and unrelenting beat of a war drum, distant yet present, a heartbeat echoing through frost. In the center of the field stands a wooden post, blackened by time and sleepless watchfires, rimed with ice. Bound to it, bare-chested and still, is a man. His skin is pale against the dark wood, a canvas already. Claimed by the cold, he does not shiver. He does not weep. His breath is shallow mist, rising and vanishing like the last warmth of his body. He is not bleeding, not broken, but he has been marked, not by blade, but by judgment. The iron shackles that chained his wrists were meant not to punish the flesh, but to weigh upon the soul. He has been accused not of murder nor theft, but of a quieter crime, blasphemy. They say he spoke against the relics brought from the East, doubted their holiness, questioned the bones and blood said to cure and sanctify. His voice, they say, was proud, unrepentant, and heard by the wrong ears. The local priest, face pale with fury, called for fire, for iron, for God's wrath made visible. But the bishop, worn thin by years of heresy trials and hangings, sought another path, older, more solemn. Let the heavens themselves decide. The ritual of exposure, no food, no fire, no shelter, only the cold judgment of night. If the man lives until the third bell of dawn, then he is innocent in the eyes of God. If he dies, his soul is damned, and his body denied burial within sacred ground. The villagers do not gather close. They watch from the edges, wrapped in fur, hoods pulled low. They do not jeer nor pray. They simply watch, silent shapes beneath a gray sky. A mother clutches her child tighter. An old man mutters to himself. No one speaks the accused's name. That name has become too heavy, too uncertain. As dusk deepens, the snow thickens. Wind moves low across the earth, whistling through empty trees, rattling wooden eaves and iron gates. The man remains upright. His knees threaten to buckle, but his chains hold him fast. He does not cry out. Instead, he speaks, softly, endlessly. Words carried away on wind. A prayer? A curse? No one dares step close enough to know. By midnight, frost clings to his hair. His lips are split and blue. His hands, purple with cold, tremble no longer. They've grown still. The stillness of limbs too long denied fire. But his eyes remain open, wide, watching, fixed on a single point in the distance, the chapel window, where one candle burns behind thick glass. It flickers as if uncertain, as if caught between going out or flaring brighter. Its glow falls faintly. Across the altar cloth, where relics lie nestled in velvet, the same relics that birthed this trial. Somewhere, beyond the fields, a dog howls. Its cry rises and falls like a mourning bell. A child, watching from the arms of her father, breaks free and stumbles forward, but is stopped. A hand grips her shoulder. No one crosses that field. Not now. Not with death so near. Time slows. The night becomes long and circular. Minutes loop back upon themselves. The snow grows deeper, whispering secrets as it falls. The man begins to fade from view, cloaked. Now in frost and shadow. Only his eyes gleam, faintly. Still locked on the candle. Still waiting. Then, faint and distant, the toll of the first bell. Dawn approaches. The air grows lighter, less cruel. The sky shifts from black to a bruised violet. The second bell tolls. A priest emerges from the chapel, wrapped in thick wool, a censer in hand. He expects a corpse. He expects silence, but as he nears the post, something stirs. A faint rattle, metal on wood. A groan, sharp and broken. The man impossibly draws. Breath. His head lifts. His skin is cracked and rimmed with frost, but his eyes still live, still burn. He has survived. The third bell rings. He should be celebrated. He should be washed and fed, his name cleared. But the silence that greets his endurance is colder than the snow. The villagers do not cheer. The priest does not rejoice. Survival here is dangerous. It unravels certainty. It complicates the doctrine they've built with blood and incense. The priest says nothing. He does not meet the man's eyes. The chains are struck off with iron tools. They clatter to the ground, not with finality, but shame. The man is not welcomed back. He is not given warmth. He is told only this: leave. Do not return. His endurance has not made him clean. It has made him strange, and so he walks, barefoot, through snow that comes up to his ankles, across a field that saw him. Die and return. He leaves no footprints. The wind covers his steps as quickly as he makes them. The villagers watch him vanish. A silhouette fading into the pale morning, ghost-like dot behind him. The chapel bell tolls once more. Not for him, not quite. As if unsure whether to summon the faithful or to mourn what faith has just undone. Some say he vanished into the woods. Others claim he wandered south to warmer lands to forget what had been done in the name of holiness. But the post where he once stood remains, black and cracked by cold. No one touches it. The relics remain behind glass dot, and in the seasons to come, the candle still burns at the same window. But no one looks at it the same dot, because once a man looked back and lived. A man walks east through the snow, where no road dares go. Behind him, the chapel bell tolls once more, its echo fading into a silence even the wind respects. There are no footprints in the trail he leaves, only the hush of disbelief. Days pass, then nights, then hunger, but he does not stop. His skin is cracked, his lips torn by frost, but his eyes do not close. The forest rises around him now, black and old. Branches hang low like arms in mourning. The snow becomes sleet, then rain, then mist. He sleeps beneath branches, curled like a child, heart rattling like loose coins in a beggar's pouch. He eats nothing, he speaks nothing. The villagers who cast him out speak of him only in hushed tones, if at all. They say he walks still, carrying the silence of God on his back. On the 7th day, or perhaps the 10th time, no longer moves in straight lines. He sees it. A ruined chapel, half swallowed by bramble and root. The roof collapsed, its walls eroded to bone. Ivy crawls where saints once stood. And yet, inside, untouched by decay, rests a single altar of moss-covered stone. Upon it, a nail old, rusted, blackened by age or fire, sighed by some long-forgotten monk to have once touched. The flesh of Christ, he does not kneel to worship. He does not cross himself. He steps forward and stares, not at the relic, but at the memory, the candle in the chapel. The priests flinch, the breath that never quite returned. And then he begins to weep. Not with reverence, not with guilt. The pain of being unburied. Because to survive is not a blessing in this world. It is a haunting. He touches the nail. It burns him. Or perhaps it doesn't. It is hard to say what is real anymore. That night, he does not sleep. He builds a fire from broken pews and wet parchment. He sits in the glow like a ghost becoming flesh again. And in the morning, he carves, not a cross, but something older, a spiral, a mark of wind, of memory, of what came before the saints and their iron chains. Soon, others begin to arrive. A boy with a twisted leg, limping on frostbitten toes. A mother with hollow eyes, clutching a baby that never cries. A man whose tongue has been cut out, but whose gaze burns with questions. They gather, not because they believe, but because he does not ask them to. He becomes something they follow, not out of worship, but out of weariness. A new word spreads between the trees. Call on pilgrim. Not priest, not heretic, pilgrim. A soul who walked through God's silence and did not. Back in the village, the bishop hears rumors. A gathering in the woods. Broken people finding fire again. He orders nothing at first, but he begins to fast. He begins to pray with eyes wide open, because survival, once rare, has become contagious, and faith, once enforced, now seems optional. In the ruined chapel. Beneath the sighing trees, the pilgrim raises no banners. He offers no sermons. He simply lights a torch against the mist. And though he leaves no footprints, others follow them anyway.